Hey Blake, thanks for coming on. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Amir?
Yeah, I'm doing well too. Yeah, in this episode, I want to cover how you're like able to reach hard to get audiences as you're not targeting I don't know, many of us target SaaS marketers, video marketers, video salespeople, but you're targeting a really hard to reach audience. I want to get into how you do that on LinkedIn, or maybe if you're advertising on other platforms, we can get into that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, to set a little bit of context, right? So like you said, I'm a senior manager here at Transfix. So we're not targeting, B2B marketers, B2B salespeople, recruiters, HR people, like all the type of people that you see all over LinkedIn. We're not targeting them. And so what our business is we're a digital freight brokerage. So basically what we do is we take large shippers, so companies that need to move goods. So just examples, right, of shippers like that'd be like a Costco, Target, Walmart, Home Depot, companies that are moving goods from A to B. And then what we do is we match them up with carriers on our marketplace, so truck drivers, and we help them, the shippers that need to move loads from A to B, we match them with carriers that are running those lanes where they need those loads moved, and we mash them together. We're a brokerage, right? So that's kind of our ICP, and who we really go after on LinkedIn is we go after our shipper audience. So really niche ICP, we're looking at, directors of supply chain, directors of logistics, vice presidents of transportation. So with that really narrow focus of this is exactly who we can sell to, companies that fit this ICP profile from the shipper's perspective, as well as these job titles and personas, it really starts with just a solid account list, right? And I think that's where a lot of companies go wrong is like at the strategy level, you have to know who you're targeting. Like I think you guys at Hockey Stack do a great job where like, hey, here's our ICP, who's who we're trying to get in front of, whether it's from a paid or organic perspective, and you make sure that's who you're targeting. Same thing that we're doing, but just very niche down into the transportation space. So it really starts at the account list level, and then from there we layer on the relevant job titles and do a couple things there.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, one question that's not really relevant to this conversation, but if I had a I don't know, job offer from a transportation company, um, I would be like terrified. And I would be like scared of finding marketing. Were you like scared when you first started Transfix?
I don't know if I was scared. I was excited for the opportunity. It's definitely different than anything I've done. So previously, I worked
Mm-hmm.
at Refine Labs, B2B market agency that a lot of people know here on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And, like the companies I worked with a wide range of companies that were selling SaaS offerings to different niches. So one was nonprofits, one was small SMB restaurant owners, another one was like founders, director of operations. So a wide range of different industries I was going after. And even before that, I worked in-house at a small B2B company where we sold to the corrections industry, so jails, prisons, juvenile
Mm-hmm.
facilities. So I'm like used to more of those niche job titles, but totally, it's definitely not selling to marketers or salespeople on LinkedIn. It is definitely a whole new spin on it.
Yeah, exactly. And how do you on this campaign setup side? How do you get the lists, or do you use LinkedIn native targeting?
Yeah, so at first, when I started, we considered doing both options, right? We were like, all right, let's set a campaign with an account list, and then let's set a campaign with native targeting. But I think, the biggest thing that I've learned being in, over a dozen LinkedIn ad accounts over the past 18 months is it's just so important to understand your company strategy before you set your LinkedIn strategy, right? Because I went in there thinking, okay, yeah, let's do both the native and let's do both the account list strategy. But really, as we kind of came to understand as a marketing team and just our overall business, right, is that the native targeting solution didn't work for us. We had to go the account list route because we have such a specific ICP of who we handle. So
Mm-hmm.
I won't get into like the details of like moving logistics, transportation, freight. But essentially, there's all these
Mm-hmm.
different ways where you can move, shipments from A to B. And specifically, when you have like truckers and truck drivers moving them, there's what's called full truckloads and then less than full truckloads. So FTL and LTL. So we
Mm-hmm.
only focus on full truckloads. So our ICP is, shippers that, do full truckload transportation, and that's it, right? Like we can do LTL, but our focus is on the FTL. So because of that, we have to get really organized as a business around here is our specific list of enterprise accounts that we're going after. And here's our specific list of mid-market accounts that we're going after. So all of that is to say, without getting too much into the weeds of the business of Transfix, is that when it comes to our LinkedIn targeting, we had to go the account list route because we had to be so specific about who we were going after. So that's just, getting together a CSV. Here's our accounts. Here's our domain. Here's some other, identifiers. Upload that to LinkedIn. And that's kind of how we start to build the seed audiences.
Mm-hmm. And how are you, like, what are the campaigns that you're running in terms of like reach campaigns, website visits, and how did you organize your LinkedIn ads account right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've definitely experimented with a lot of different objectives. Primarily, we use the reach objective. We do run a couple video campaigns, and anytime we do a video campaign, I'll optimize for video views to help build our retargeting audience a little bit better. But really, we've kind of experimented between reach, website visits, and video views. We've kind of honed in on reach and video views because we're going after that in-feed consumption. One thing that I found, and this is not just at Transfix, but when you go after website visits, it limits your reach because what you're doing is you're signaling to LinkedIn, we want to optimize for those website visits, which is great. But what it'll do is it will only optimize for people that have shown a higher likelihood to actually click on the ad. So it's going to limit your reach. So say there's 1,000 people on there, a website visits campaign might be 300 people, but a reach campaign might get you to 900. So that's why we've kind of optimized for reach, because one thing that we've noticed is that our audience is so niche, and there aren't as many of directors of logistics at Fortune 500 companies that are on LinkedIn as there are B2B marketers at seed and Series A startups, right? So it's a little bit different with that regard. So we've had to really make sure we're making the most of our ad spend and going after those audiences with our reach campaigns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing that I noticed is probably you have more space to be creative, but not as much space as the case. Like, for example, for us, there are lots of companies in the martech space, and they have tried everything. They have experimented everything, like from ebooks all the way to gift cards, all the way to I've seen Jeff giving like AirPods plus a phone plus Beats to their ABM companies. I've checked out their ads, and yeah, on the other side, in your industry, probably they have not tested lots of stuff. Are you doing anything creative on LinkedIn or anything in like marketing?
Yeah, we're definitely testing out different offers. I think, it's a great point. Like, everyone's seen on LinkedIn, you scroll like, okay, hey, you get your Amazon gift card. A lot of people have seen those from a couple of well-known MarTech vendors in the space. But then there's even like, hey, get your Yeti mug, or I think one time last summer we saw like get a mini grill, right, as an offer. We're definitely experimenting with some of those different offers and different things that we can use. But I think what we're trying to prove out first is just kind of like a 101 playbook of just like, hey, here's our case studies that we're offering, testimonials, our awareness ads, and then from there we're kind of looking to iterate like, okay, let's try this like native lead gen campaign where we're just asking for an offer on like a freight audit, or these different things that we're trying to really test out.
Mm-hmm. And how big is your audience size? Because I have been thinking about this for a very long time, and we recently signed with a vendor to like just expand the audience size because we have been doing LinkedIn ads for the last 5 months, and it's I think 80% of our revenue, very big part of the revenue. And but we only have an audience of 25,000 people because it's like manual scraping, working with a couple of freelancers because we couldn't find a good vendor that fits with our like needs. And we recently signed with a vendor, and we're trying to expand that audience size to 100K maybe, or even bigger, hopefully. And just like as I said, just recorded an episode with Justin, and he shared his screen and then showed everything as he does on LinkedIn as well. So his audiences were like 200,000 people, 300,000 people. So how big is your audience sizes? And as you have like worked with Refine Labs and other companies as well, you have probably seen lots of different LinkedIn ads accounts. What are your tips around that?
Yeah, so I think audience size, I might have a little bit different perspective. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but this is kind of the perspective I've
Hmm.
gained after working with a couple different companies, different industries, is that I think it's less of a function of just like saying like let's expand our audience size. Because I think it goes back to company strategy, right? Like for us at Transfix, if these are our, I'm just gonna make up a number, right? If these are our 1,000 accounts that we're gonna go after in this space, then that's the 1,000 accounts we're gonna go after. Like, yes, that'll change over time, but with our targeting, like these companies aren't moving in and out of this TAM that we have. They're pretty settled, right? These are large organizations. So for us, it's less about expanding our audience size. Like, yes, we can go after decision makers. We can also target influencers and champions of the deal so that we're kind of like bringing in the whole buying committee. And then we could have a campaign where we bring in executives. But I think it's less about expanding the audience. And it's more about either expanding, how many ads you're putting in front of them and what type of creative you're putting in front of them. And then for expanding the audience, like I said, you start with like kind of your core group. Here's my decision makers and influencers. And then maybe you can expand that a little bit, but it's more of a function of understanding where you're at as a business, right? Because like for Hockey Stack or for Impactable, which are, both you guys have great ad executions. I think for your company strategy, it might make more sense where you can expand your audience because in theory, you have a more horizontal product where, you guys have
Hmm.
Hockey Stack, which is marketing attribution. You can expand to more companies. You might have an ICP, but you can broaden your TAM. Same thing with Impactable. They're selling a LinkedIn ads service, which can basically be every B2B company as their TAM. That might not be their ICP. So I think like that's like the fundamental difference I would identify is that when you're looking at audience sizes, it goes back to the company strategy. And if you can expand it because your product's more horizontal, that's great. And if you can't, you have to look within your accounts you're going after. How do you expand beyond the decision makers to influencers, champions, etc.? Or how do
Hmm.
you up the frequency of creative that you're putting in front of them? So does that help?
Yeah, yeah, helps. It's really insightful. And do you have a dog? I can hear, I think, in the background.
Yeah, yeah, I have. I think you've probably been able to hear a baby and a dog, both in the same episode. So yeah,
Oh.
it's a full house here.
Yeah, I recently adopted a 2-month-old puppy, so now I can hear better the like
Oh man, God
sounds of the
bless you.
dog.
A puppy. I think a puppy might be more work than a baby at times.
Yeah, it is. And he cannot get outside of the house because he didn't get the final vaccination yet. We're still waiting, so he is still home.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And wanting to go outside, chewing on everything. Oh yeah, a lot of fun there.
Yeah. And like we were talking about the ICP, and for example, for us, if you were to test out a couple ICPs, our like sales cycle is probably 1 to 2 months, maybe,
Hmm.
maybe 3 months. So we can potentially test out a new like ICP. For example, we are going to expand into sales maybe this quarter, and then if I were to test it out, I can launch campaigns and I can do outreach, and in 2 months probably we would have that figured out. But for you, probably your sales cycle is, I don't know how long it is, but probably much longer than that. How did you figure that ICP part out, or have they like figured it out before you entered the job?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think when you're considering like testing with like, your ICP size and like getting feedback quickly, like specifically here at Transfix, like it's definitely set at like the whole company strategy level where we're all sales, marketing, product, executive team saying like this is, ICP who we're aligning on. But to your
Mhm.
point, right? Like I've worked with some different B2B SaaS companies where they have a high velocity sales cycle where it's 40 days, right? Because our sales cycle, a lot of our enterprise shippers will go through a formal RFP process, which typically occurs annually. It can occur a little bit more frequently than that, but it's a long sales cycle, right? Because you have to get invited to that RFP process. So for us, it's kind of set really at the company level. But then in your case, and like other cases I've seen, when it's more high velocity, you can get that feedback loop where you can clearly see, hey, we're going to test out this ICP because we know we're really nailing our current one. We want to look to expand. So, like in your case, looking for sales. I think that's great that you guys can just take what's working for maybe your marketing ICP and see, hey, can we duplicate that? Just tweak the value prop and the offer. The same thing for the sales ICP. So I think it's just, like velocity of sales of like your sales cycle definitely matters when it comes to like looking at like testing new ICPs within your LinkedIn ads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes total sense. And also, for example, for us right now, our account looks like four main pillars. One of them is case studies and like social proof. One of them is product screenshots with titles. One of them is creative, where we like test out memes, videos, stuff like that. And then the other one is retargeting, where we push playbooks, podcast clips, all that fun stuff. How does your account look like?
Yeah, so our account looks like, definitely around like the product side. We have stuff there. We have stuff around like thought leadership. So we have a podcast where we'll publish, like our own proprietary insights around where the market's at with some internal SMEs. We've got some like product awareness. We've got some like thought leadership content that we'll use. Like I said, like we've had some case studies that we've run in the past. And then we've recently started experimenting with what we're calling like lo-fi videos. So we're basically, keeping it really low fidelity and having like, say our senior product marketing manager create like an explainer video that he shoots on his iPhone, where we have this new product launch. And instead of having this highly produced video, we're testing out things where he's just we write like a quick and dirty like mock-up of a script, circulate it around the team, and then he shoots the video and our creative director will, edit it, and then we launch it, right? So I think those are some of the more those are like the buckets that we fall in, and those lo-fi videos have been a really good experiment for us to run.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And how does your retargeting work?
Yeah, so retargeting.
Or do you do retargeting?
What's that?
Or do you do retargeting?
Yeah. So we'll do our retargeting buckets. For our retargeting, we don't have we have some specific flows that we built out and that we're building out. But really what we do for that is we make it more conversion focused here at Transfix. So it'll be more of a bottom of the funnel offer of talk to our sales team, do things like that. What I've done in other places as well for retargeting is, kind of think about if somebody came to our website and they didn't buy yet, what are the different pieces of content we can put in front of them? So I think some great ones like the right case studies putting in front of them, a mix of testimonials, some product demos. So instead of having somebody come to your website and do an interactive demo that you might have set up, you just put it straight in the feed. So I think that's a great way to do it. And then also just, as much good social proof and practical, showing how the product actually works, I think is a great mix in the retargeting feed. But so it's a little bit of a mix of both. Transfix, we're doing a lot more direct response, talk to our sales team. And then in other instances, I've also done a lot of, social proof, product ads, those different things, and demo videos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what we have been testing right now is we are on the LinkedIn platform. On LinkedIn ads, we are doing, on the retargeting side, we are doing more social proof, playbooks, all that stuff without direct response. And we're getting the same audience onto Facebook. And then on Facebook, we are pushing more with direct response. And we're going to see how it works because on Facebook, CPCs are lower. And we can find, I think, 50 to 60% of the same people that we target on LinkedIn on Facebook as well. And there, we are running those direct response ads right now, and they're going to see how it works. But yeah.
I think one more note on retargeting. I think that, one thing that we're doing too is that's a really good point to bring up, Emir. We're going outside of just LinkedIn, right? We have LinkedIn, we have Facebook and Instagram, and then we also run, it might be a dirty word for some marketers, but we're doing some display retargeting with some really specific banner ads. And then we're also doing, going to be experimenting with some YouTube retargeting. Because basically the idea is exactly as you said, LinkedIn, your CPMs are going to be a lot higher. You'll have some higher CPCs. So if there's any way that we can optimize and have lower CPMs and reach the same audience, whether it's on Facebook and Instagram, display, there's probably some, conversation there around how quality are those placements. But I think, we're trying to get that surround sound for all of our retargeting audiences to just drive as many conversions as we can there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And my final question, and I'm only asking this to the smartest people I know in the game. Yeah, I have some mixed opinions on this. We have been testing this out, like the gift card thing. Yeah, and the biggest fans of gift card has been metadata. And they recently launched an episode of their Dimension U, um, and where they talked about they have been like only attributing that revenue into the pipeline stage one, which is signing up for a demo. And when they took a look at stage three, stage four, actual like close rates, they seen that gift cards do not work at all. At least that's what I understood from that video. And it's really interesting because they have been pushing this out so far. And I was in a position where we're like, if I don't test it out, I'm stupid. And then we tested out for 1.5 months. We got one really big customer out of that, and the rest of it was didn't work. They were there in the demo for the gift card, and we scheduled a follow up call. They were like, oh, "I'm really interested in this," and 60% of them didn't show up to the second call, and then just ghosted. How do you feel about that? And have you tried it yourself?
Yeah, I definitely tried it. I think for those, I think there's a couple caveats I would add. I've done it across 3 or 4 accounts now, and the caveats I would add is that number one, it makes the most sense when you have a high ACV product, right? Because it becomes a math problem in a game of unit economics where, say it costs you $250 to get someone to sit on a demo for an incentivized demo. You give them $100, so it's $350 fully loaded without looking at like the sales rep's time on that call. Just looking at like the pure ad and gift card spend. If you've got a 50K ACV product, the math can work. Like it could be ROI positive, payback period within 12 months. There's some other ramifications that I don't think people consider, like hidden costs. One of them is that, obviously your sales team is going to be talking to a lot of people that don't close. Another one is that you might be converting people too soon, that they might have come inbound to you on your website and converted, but because they got the demo, they weren't ready yet. They kind of take them out of that consideration cycle. So I think that's the second big thing. But the third thing that I would say, not something to consider, but just something for people to think about, is exactly what you talked about. Everyone should test it, right? Like, I think paid media, there's no one good way to do paid ads. I think it's about understanding your customer, understanding your market, understanding your company strategy, and then you just set up hypotheses and experiments, and you start to either prove or disprove your hypotheses, right? So like you said, ran it for 1.5 months. We got one big customer so that paid it back, but everybody else wasn't quality, so we weren't going to invest anymore in trying to scale it up. I think that's the approach most companies should take, because you need to see what works for your audience and what works for your unit economics.
Mm-hmm. And a very good example, that if I can find it, I'm going to show it to you, is from actually Cognizant. I think I have seen it in my feed. Yeah, I couldn't find it, but it was basically there was a gift card on the creative, and then it was like broken into half, and then it was like, we're not gonna give you $100 gift card on Amazon, and we're gonna give you 50 leads for free, kind of thing. And I think it would have worked well for me if I was a sales leader or something like that, looking for a tool like Cognizant.
Yeah,
maybe like taking the
offer.
opposite direction. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think what
taking the opposite direction.
Yeah. So like they're like going like so counter to it, but it's still like they still have a good offer, right? Because it's like you still like, okay, I don't get $100, but I get 50 contact information of people with an account list. Like that's still a good offer, in my opinion. Just a different form of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And my final question is how are you using your podcast on LinkedIn and other ad platforms?
Yeah, so how we're thinking about it, right, is like we're thinking about it from the perspective of it's guaranteed distribution, right? Because like with the podcast, yes, you grow your organic subscribers on Apple Podcasts, Spotify being the 2 biggest platforms. But for us, what we're doing is we're taking snippets that we think are the most valuable from the podcast, and we're putting that in front of that really tight target account / with job title filters over it, putting it in front of that account list and making sure that our ICP sees it, right? Because how we really want to position Transfix is as thought leaders and as trusted partners and as strategic partners in the freight space. And so we're putting that podcast in front of that target account list with the only goal of them to consume it so they can, reach the end goal where they're more likely to trust us, know us, like us, and invite us to an RFP process. And so when our sales team reaches out to them, they know who we are. So that's how we're using it. Just guaranteed distribution and consumption.
Mm-hmm. And we're trying to do that as well. We have I think 50 hours of recorded podcast videos, everything, but we didn't have a video person in the team. So right now we're hiring a videographer, and then they're going to help us with that. But also an interesting thing, Tom Hunt and Mikhail at Slice, they're both doing it, is they're posting those clips on their company pages, and then they're asking a question that's provoking question, I don't know, gift cards, for example. Nobody should use gift cards, do you agree? Something like that. And they're getting a couple of responses, and then they're running ads on those posts with reach. Yeah, and they're getting more responses organically, and then they grow the company page that way. I think that's really smart too.
Yeah, that's a super interesting strategy. I think a lot of people will dismiss boosting as a 101 type strategy, but when it has a strategy like that in place, I think that's a super interesting way to grow your company page. And really, it's it's not like a gated community where you got to go sign up in Slack or Facebook, but it's a way to build community as long as your targeting is tight and the content's relevant to who you're targeting.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Thank you so much for sharing all the things. Yeah, and thank you so much for your time. I'm going to leave a link to your LinkedIn. And then is there anything, any other platform that you want me to link?
No. LinkedIn's great, and I appreciate you having me on. I hope this is helpful for everyone watching. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me on LinkedIn. Always happy to help any way I can.
Thank you.